go. Today is October 18th, 2022. Welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live. We are your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. We cover breaking news, culture, memetic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Anyways, today we have a very special guest. He's already been blowing my mind, and I've only had a chance to talk to him about 10 minutes backstage. I want to welcome the legendary, the one and only Beautyon. How you doing? Welcome to Simply.
Thank you for having me, Nico.
I'm really excited for this show. I'm already pumped. I know Opti is too. He was telling me about it. It's my legendary co-host, the one and only, always optimistic.
Humble co-host. I'm super excited for this. I love reading Beautyon's work, so I'm just pretty hyped that we can do this today and continue to spread the signal for people out there. So I morphed my section around some of Beautyon's writings, and hopefully we can get some more signal and some clarity out there for the people that don't understand what you're saying, which I think is very clear, but hey, there's still misconceptions on Twitter. So I'm excited for today.
I'm really excited. So today, guys, we're also going to talk a little bit, some Marty Bent dropping the sauce. He released a post talking about a potential upgrade to Bitcoin, what it means. We're going to talk about it, the significance of all that. And I'm 99% sure most of you have not heard about it. So I think it's going to be a really good show. I'm really excited. Let's do this. Number time. Brought to you by NODL. At this point, you should be running your own Bitcoin node. If you don't use your own Bitcoin node, you're trusting someone else's. Run your own version of Bitcoin Core, the Lightning Network, Whirlpool, and Dojo, all from the comfort of your own home. And if you're a digital nomad, you have absolutely no excuse, because now you can run a NODL through a virtual private server. Visit nodl.eu today. All right, everybody. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is at 19,424 sats per dollar. For now, it's called Moscow time. For now, 5,148. Block height, 759,239. Blocks to the halvening, 14,511. Halving estimate April 20th, 2024. Blocks to the halvening, 80,761. Total Lightning Network capacity, 4,973. Capacity value, 96 million USD. I hope that breaks 100 million and it stays above there. Realized monetary inflation. Once again, Bitcoin taking fiat currencies to absolute school, 1.78%. That number is going to keep decreasing, and we know fiat inflates forever. Market capitalization, $372 billion. I picked a screenshot of a Reddit post specifically for Beautyon, and I think I want to talk about the significance of this, how it's going to change the world. I'm just going to read some of it. I'm going to pass the mic to Beautyon. So let's check it out. This is, it was a deleted post. And this is Mungo's Brainstorm. This is a feature, not a bug. I just exited a country with $1 million worth of Bitcoin. So many people just get stuck on the fact that Bitcoin is intangible, but I say that's a good thing. Just like you can't hold what you can't see, you can't confiscate what you can't see either. I got on a flight with my seed phrase on me, and there was absolutely no way anyone could have known about my Bitcoin. There isn't a single asset that could have let me do this freely. Sure, there are shitcoins and stablecoins. Other than them being centralized, they aren't even built to be money. They're all promises or straight up monopoly money. My conviction about Bitcoin is higher than ever, and even if people don't like Bitcoin now, they will surely need it at some point in their life, and it might be too late then. I'll continue to buy all the Bitcoin that the paper hands sell to me. So a couple things here, and I've actually tweeted this. The fact that you could store millions, billions, if not trillions of dollars in your mind by memorizing a 12-word phrase is going to fundamentally change everything. Beautyon, what are your thoughts on this? I'm really excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, you could actually store all the fiat that's ever going to be printed in a seed phrase inside your mind. The whole nature of the fraud of fiat means that it is an infinite surprise. It's nothing more than text on a piece of paper that anybody can print out. And so if you can compress that into a seed phrase, you could have all the fiat that's ever been printed in your mind. But more important than this, what this demonstrates is that it will not be possible to stop people from moving money, quote unquote, from A to B anymore, because anybody who can remember 12 seed phrase or can write it down in a book in a way that nobody will know they're carrying it, can carry money from A to B and an unlimited amount of money. That means the voluntary society The polite society is on the brink of coming out of the womb, because when the state has to ask nicely for permission, they can't go to Chase, they can't go to JP Morgan and freeze your account, because there are no accounts. And this is why it's so important that people who are running Bitcoin services don't rely on third-party aggregators to supply their connection to Bitcoin D and the Bitcoin network. That's why it's absolutely essential that you control your own keys. Otherwise, the old system is going to be replaced with a new system, only a little bit with a little bit less friction. This is a sea change in how things are done. And in order to take advantage of that sea change, to get on the boat of that sea change, you have to control your own keys. That means you have to use the right tools in the right way, and then you'll be free. Now, what kind of man doesn't want to be free? What kind of man thinks that somebody else should have ultimate control over their money? I put it to you that that is not a man at all. That's some kind of creature. And of course, there's some people who are too scared to be able to remember 12 seed phrases or write them down. Maybe they're even illiterate, who knows? So for them, there'll be other services that will be suitable for them. But if you are literate, you have memory to be able to remember 12 words and know how to use a pen to be able to mark in a book 12 words that you have your seed phrase, then you are under nobody's control. And that's the way it should be. And people have to treat you with politeness if they want anything from you. And people means anybody. There's not going to be anybody who is above you who can demand that you pay them anything automatically. They're going to have to do something to you, like lock you up or do something like that. And then we're into another stage of the violence of the state. And remember also, it's not possible for them to interdict everybody. There's not enough police to police everybody in the West, never mind the whole world. And when the billions who are coming onto Bitcoin wake up to this, and they will wake up to it, then the system's going to transform into something else, a more polite society where coercion is not the first line of attack against the people. And the nature of government is going to change also. They're not going to be able to do all of the nasty, violent, and ridiculous things that they're able to do by printing money in behind everybody's backs and stealing the money from people who have put their savings into those so-called banks. That's going to end too. And so many things are going to change when the regime of Bitcoin is the universal overlay over the global economy. And anybody who thinks that this is not going to happen, I have news for you. You're absolutely wrong. Other things that have been transformative like this have happened against the wishes of those people who are quote unquote in control. And Bitcoin is no different because it's actually not money, it's just a database. Many other database tools, whether it be BitTorrent or many other things, have spread all over the world in a way that cannot be controlled. Now that these two ideas have been put into one thing, the idea of databases that are disintermediated, for want of a better description, and money are now in one thing, and money being half of all transactions, this is a sea change in how everything is going to work. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. You can either fight against it and lose, or go along with it and prosper. And everybody is going to prosper, by the way, under Bitcoin. It's not a destructive thing. It's an entirely constructive thing. And all those people who have concerns about the environment, they're not looking at it in the correct way. The consumer society, where all sorts of frivolous goods are overconsumed and then thrown away like they're worth nothing. Actually, most of them are, but that's another story. This world is going to disappear. When the economy turns from one of spending onto saving, people won't be frivolous with their money anymore. The consumer society will be replaced by a society of thrift, which means that the garbage producing industries will all shrivel up and go away, replaced by industries that produce things that are designed to last, whether it's a pair of shoes, a belt, a shirt, or a lovely jumper like the one I'm wearing. They'll be made to last. And so there won't be seasonal changes of everybody's clothes. Things like Primark, which are designed basically to make people go and waste money, those are all going to go away because everybody's going to be saving. And it'll be worth saving because your money in the bank won't be diminished by inflation. The vast majority of people don't understand the dynamics of inflation, government produced money, all these sorts of things. But when the feeling of what's changed gets into the general population, when the feeling about what this actually means starts to take hold, people will automatically start saving money because the prices of things will be changed in the market when they're all denominated in Bitcoin. And I don't know how far along in the future this is going to be, but it's definitely going to happen if Bitcoin continues to exist and continues to spread. And of course, we're doing our level best to make that happen.
Oh man, that was amazing.
Amazing.
Holy crap. So many ideas that I think because again, if you've been in Bitcoin long enough and you understand the significance of individuals, hundreds of millions of individuals holding their own private keys, it fundamentally changes the relationship between individual and the state, right? It moves the balance of power, like I always say on this show. And I don't think we fully understand the significance of that. But if you're a big believer in the free market, right, the free market's never going to it's never had that much freedom, right? I don't know how else to phrase it, right?
That's exactly right. And, the idea that you can have a free market where the form and supply of money is under the control of the state is absurd. In order to have a free market, you have to have a free market in the form and supply of money that's used by everybody. And the people who have been in charge of that know that private monies are very, very dangerous because all of the plans and machinations that they're working on all depend on an unlimited supply of money that they can manufacture at will. That's how they're able to have this military industrial complex, surveillance state, and all that other business. It cannot be paid for if the money supply is limited. And so that's not the only thing. There's there are many cronies who make a fortune out of getting access to this fiat money first, and they're not going to be very happy with the new shape of the world. But they know that these things cannot possibly last forever. All fiat currencies have all gone to zero in the end. I think the average life of these fiat currencies over time has been 16 years, if you measure them all. So it's very important for them, if they want to maintain their positions of any kind, to get onto the Bitcoin network, become peers on the Bitcoin network, and use the existing infrastructure that they've built to start turning around Bitcoin for themselves. Otherwise, they're going to be replaced. It's as simple as that.
Man, it's beautiful. It's crazy how and watching their reflex reaction, which is always relying on the monopoly of violence that they have, and just looking to that and watching them come to terms with the fact that usual mechanism to keep that moat up doesn't work anymore. Right.
And it can't work because everybody's going to be on a peer-to-peer basis. Means exactly that. It means people trading between each other, and there's not enough police to police them all. And also, some of the pretexts they're using for so-called cracking down on Bitcoin are absolutely absurd, saying that it's being used for criminal enterprises. Well, even if it was, not all the people on Earth are criminals. The vast majority of people, we're talking, I don't know, like 97% of people are law-abiding people, don't want any trouble from anybody, and they don't steal, they don't murder, they don't do anything else. So to lump everybody who uses Bitcoin or any other tool into that big, that cesspool, tiny little bit is completely ridiculous. And it's an overreaction. It's an overreaction that shows they're scared out of their minds about change. And I'm afraid that there is nobody that's going to react to them being frightened. Nobody cares that they're frightened. They just want to do things better. They want more convenience. They don't want their money stolen from them. And like this story of this guy who walked through the one country to another with $1 million, this is what they want. They want to be able to move from A to B with their money, or move their money from A to B without any problems. And I know some people who are doing some business in the West Africa, and it was very difficult for them to move money from A to B because the banking systems don't talk to each other. And so with Bitcoin, all that goes away. all that goes away. The speed at which people will be doing business will just go through the ceiling. And also, bear this in mind, all of the e-commerce giants in the West will suddenly have access to billions of people, literally billions of people, who will all by their mobile phones be able to buy and sell over their platforms. Take, for example, Amazon. Just imagine if Amazon had an extra, not even 2 billion, 500 million users being able to buy on Amazon. You'd have to be insane to say no to that. And also because Bitcoin is a push system, payer fraud is totally eliminated by it. So not only do you get access to many more people, but you get access to a tool that eliminates payer fraud and all of the costs that you have to eat to do that are associated with that. So people who are against Bitcoin are either ignorant, or they have a vested interest in keeping people away from Bitcoin, or they're just plain dumb. And there are people who are plain dumb in the world, and we have to live with them, but they're going to have to live in our world now, the Bitcoin mediated world, because there's nothing they can do to stop it.
Oh, man. I'm really going to enjoy this episode. All right, everybody. Let's move to the news. I have some Marty Bent, awesome article, and I have some tweets, some articles from Beauty On, and we're going to ask him to elaborate a little bit about that. Anyways, let's continue.
The Daily News.
Brought to you by Bitbox 2 Bitcoin Only Edition, a hardware wallet by Shift Crypto. Crypto like cryptography. It's secure, it's open source, and it's so easy your mom can set it up. Self-custody is the revolution, and the Bitbox makes it simple. Do not leave your Bitcoin on an exchange. Order a Bitbox today.
All right, everybody, let's check this out. This is the software, this is the update that they're trying to merge into Bitcoin Core that you've probably never heard of. Erlay, peer-to-peer, Erlay support signaling. Let's check it out. It's been over, it's been
Erlay, Nico.
Erlay. Sorry, Nico can't read. You guys know the drill. Erlay. Thank you, Opti. It's been a little over 3 years and exactly 696 issues since we have last talked about Erlay in this rag. Back in September of 2019, we wrote about Peter. Oh my God, the names. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you. And Galeb Namekenko. I'm sorry, guys. Submitting an official BIP to start the process of getting Erlay merged into the protocol. For those of you who may be unaware of what exactly Erlay is, it is a change to the transaction relay protocol at the peer-to-peer layer that full nodes use to communicate and share data about transactions that have been broadcast to the network. The change would bring material bandwidth efficiency gains to the peer-to-peer layer, which will make it easier for more people to run full nodes. I think that's the signal right there, particularly individuals who are living in areas with subpar internet connectivity. What you're looking at, freaks, is a massive breakthrough in distributed network engineering that will enable Bitcoin to become a more robust, reliable, and private network. More robust because it enables more individuals to participate in network validation by opening up the potential universe of those who have the ability to run a full node by lowering the barrier to entry on the internet bandwidth side of things. More reliable by increasing the connectivity between nodes, and more private by making it harder for attackers to identify the node from which a transaction originated. Extremely bullish. Beauty On, more to the peer-to-peer. What are your thoughts on the Erlay update or potential Bitcoin improvement protocol being merged into Bitcoin Core?
Well, I think it sounds very good on the surface. Anything like this, which is an improvement in how Bitcoin actually works, is a good thing. Things that are not good things are changes to addresses to make these funny addresses for people with their legacies and all this business. That's not good. But this is a very good thing because it expands the capabilities of Bitcoin without changing the fundamental nature of it. So I don't think anybody can be against this out of the box without just some cursory examination. And so it would be a good thing that it gets merged, because the more people who have access to be able to run full nodes increases the security of the network, and it's a good thing.
Absolutely. So I want to take advantage of the fact that you're here to talk a little bit about the recent moves by the state to go after Bitcoin specifically, right? And the example that comes to mind was the recent move by the US Treasury to ban sanction specific open source software. That has never been done before. Sanctions have always only been against individuals or countries. But for the first time in U.S. history, I believe, this is what Beauty On and I were talking about before the show, this is a preemptive move to set a precedent by the Treasury, because if they could say, we could sanction certain open source software. What is Bitcoin? An open source software. We can sanction Bitcoin. Now, is this going to be successful? Absolutely not. But you can't let the state isn't going to go gently into that good night without putting up a fight. Beauty On, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, like, when you have children, it's bedtime. It's bedtime, and so you go to bed. And so you go into that night, it's bedtime. That's all there is to it. And let's just speak seriously about this. As far as I understand, the legislature writes the legislation in the United States, not the Treasury, not SEC or anybody else. So they can't write a law in the first place. And the legislature is explicitly forbidden from writing laws that violate the Constitution. Those are two things. And then again, you can't sanction a piece of software. That's completely absurd. It's like sanctioning hemlock or arsenic in the bottle. We're going to sanction arsenic because arsenic is used to poison people. It's absurd on its face. So whoever has written this doesn't understand how software works, doesn't understand that software developers are protected by the United States the First Amendment of the Constitution in the United States. And so this is settled law. So these people are probably very young, ignorant, and don't understand what it is they're dealing with. And we see a lot of this when people try and address the so-called problem of Bitcoin. They see that something big is happening. They see it's coming down the pike, and they want to control how it's coming down the pike towards them, like this ridiculous Loomis bill. And they just expose their ignorance in the text of the law. But with this, it cannot possibly be a law. You cannot sanction a protocol. You cannot sanction a piece of software. You can only sanction people. And people write software, and Americans who write software have rights. And those rights can't be taken away by a non-legislative body. That's just a fact. It will go to court because that's the only language these people understand. And then when it goes to court, it might even go to SCOTUS, and it'll be struck down, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
It's just like crypto wars happened in the 1990s. They lost, basically. And so Clipper Chip and all this other business was abandoned. And these things will be abandoned also. And every day they spend wasting their time trying to fight Bitcoin. Bitcoin is growing stronger and stronger and stronger. And Bitcoin entrepreneurs are very nimble. They understand what a passport is. They understand that the lines on a map in the world are actual jurisdictional boundaries through which the authority of these states cannot pass. And they're going to other jurisdictions, just like the Chinese miners came to Texas to escape Chinese jurisdiction. American entrepreneurs, should the American government make a big, big fundamental mistake, as they have in the past, like with internet gambling, they'll just move to another jurisdiction and serve everybody from there. So these other jurisdictions will benefit from the ignorance of the American legislature. Or they can back down, understand that their role is a public servant, and servant doesn't mean master, it means servant. Serve the American people by getting out of their way so that the entrepreneurs can build services that serve the whole world, and their problem will be solved in that way. And of course, all these businesses that are started in the United States have to pay tax in the United States. So just imagine there's a Bitcoin company that's serving the entire world by supplying Bitcoin, and it's based in the United States. Imagine how much taxes they're going to pay. They're going to be raking in trillions of dollars. And the other big tech companies have incorporations in Ireland, Apple, Amazon, and all this business. Why? Because they don't want to pay taxes and be over-governed by the United States government. And during the Trump era, these companies were encouraged to repatriate some of the money that they've been accumulating abroad. Look, economics is not a game. Economics is real. Economics is real, and entrepreneurs will adjust their behavior to make sure that they're not being fleeced. And the American government should understand this. But unfortunately, people like Ron Paul are routinely ignored because what they're saying is unpalatable to that class of people who think that the masters are not the servants. And so America keeps making these mistakes over and over and over again. And in 2022, in a networked world where anybody can run a server anywhere with a press of a button, nobody's going to tolerate ignoramuses and other nice people interfering in their business. They're not going to tolerate it. Why should they? They shouldn't. And because Bitcoin, with the only exception of mining, which requires a physical presence, because Bitcoin is all software all the time, all the way down, they can run their businesses from anywhere. So obviously, anybody who's a patriotic American wants Bitcoin companies to be incorporated in the United States where they're going to be taxed. And that should be the overriding desire of anybody who's a public servant wanting to serve America. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else. So they need to understand that in order to, in the case of politics, ruling actually means obeying. Ruling actually means protecting. It doesn't mean getting in the way of people, hauling people before Congress to testify, pointing your finger at them, scolding them. That's not sensible. That's not sensible. It's actually anti-American. And we're finding out now that there are jurisdictions where people are moving to because it's easier to do business, and those jurisdictions are not the USA. Even inside the USA, companies fastidiously avoid doing business in New York because of that toxic, anti-American, absurd, horrific bit license. So all those people in New York who should have free access to Bitcoin, just like every other American, don't, because of one stupid legislature, one stupid man who thought he knew better than anybody else and actually wanted to set up a business for himself, policing the law that he wrote for himself. So it's very important that these people understand what their job is, what America is, what the Constitution says, and the separation of powers and everything else. If they just obey the oath that they swore, we wouldn't be even discussing this. But they all think they want to be the boss, and they're going to be shown that they're not the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very easy to predict if you're old enough to have seen, the last 30 years. And a lot of these people in the legislature are old enough to have seen this. They just don't care.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, and again, it kind of goes back to the point that I was originally saying, right? Is their usual mechanism of coercion, which is the monopoly on violence, is not effective in a Bitcoin world. It doesn't give the return on violence that it once did, right? So and what's that going to do? Eventually, they're going to be forced to change because it doesn't work anymore. But anyways, before we move on, Beauty On, I just wanted to read the first passage of your Medium article. By the way, I agree with you. Let's check it out. And it's referencing, for our audio listeners, you're watching Simply Bitcoin Live. We have a guest today, is Beauty On. And the name of the article is Unpacking the Lummis-Gillibrand Responsible Financial Innovation Act. Beauty On, you go on to say, the idea that there can be a responsible innovation is absurd on its face. If Lummis and Gillibrand were alive during the era of lake ice delivery by horse and cart, they would have found that the electric icebox was irresponsible innovation because many men would be put out of work and horses turned into glue or meat. Now, and this is something that I've actually said many times on the show, the people that are tasked to regulate you can't regulate Bitcoin, but you could definitely regulate the on-off ramps, make it difficult for people. The people that are tasked to so-called regulate Bitcoin are also the people that have the most to lose if Bitcoin succeeds. Talk about misaligned incentives. So tell us, Beauty On, why you wrote that article. What were your thoughts in that article? What angle were you approaching it from?
If you'd seen the draft of it, it was quite different, but you'd see more of my thoughts about it. The question is this: who tasked them to police speech? Who told them it's their job to police speech? That's what I want to know. Where in their oath does it say that they have the power to do that? Where in the Constitution does it say they have the power to do that? How do these people appoint themselves the masters over 300 million Americans? They're not the masters, they're the servants. And this bill is the ultimate legal straw man where they set up this fake thing called digital assets and then build a framework around it, around something that doesn't even exist. And it is an offense. It's deeply offensive to anybody who's a real American. It's deeply offensive. And and first of all, it'll never work. And if it's challenged in the Supreme Court, it will be struck down. All it's going to do is waste millions of dollars in lawyers' fees for Americans to assert themselves and assert their rights. Now, do the people who have written this abomination believe that they're doing the right thing? I don't know. Maybe they do, but they're definitely not doing the right thing. To even propose this and make everybody terrified that this horrible law is coming is highly unethical behavior. It should not even enter into their imaginations to author something like this. It's like saying that they want to write a law to stop people from authoring new science fiction books because science fiction is frightening for children. So we have to protect the children. It's completely absurd. And the fact that they've even got this far to be able to draft this law shows that there's a big discipline problem in the legislatures, not only in the United States, but also in the EU, where they're trying to do things even more outrageous. But in the EU, at least they have an excuse in that there's no written constitution. Those people have no rights guaranteed of any kind. And so they can make a law saying unhosted wallets, of which there's no such thing, are illegal. They've actually tried to propose this, and I don't know if it's going to pass or it's not going to pass. But if they do pass it, it will be an absolutely terrible disaster for the people of the EU. It will mean that ordinary people will not be able to go onto an app store, download Samurai Wallet, Pine Wallet, Blue Wallet, Moon Wallet, Phoenix, Wallet Satoshi, or any of these other good wallets, these ethical Bitcoin wallets, because they don't conform with the EU regulations. And as you know, all of the app stores are already geo-confined. So if you're trying to download one of these apps from inside the EU, it just won't turn up in your search. Only unethical Bitcoin wallets, where they are non-custodial, will be available. And this will be a very, very bad thing for people in the EU. Lucky for them, they can get a passport and expatriate. Or if they're clever, they can get a proxy and appear to be in the United States or another free country or free jurisdiction. But the principle remains the same. They have no right to control people's software. And if they do that, it's not going to stop Bitcoin at all. Software piracy is a global phenomenon. It's all throughout Europe, and there's nothing they've been able to do to stop that. So they won't be able to stop Bitcoin either. What they will do is they'll stop entrepreneurs from incorporating in any EU country, and they'll all go to the United States or someplace else, and all that money that's flowing throughout the whole Bitcoin network will go through that company inside the United States instead of somewhere else. And I think it was some French minister just today on the tweeters I saw that they want to encourage France to be the center of the new economy based on Bitcoin or quote unquote cryptocurrencies. This is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. It's never, ever going to happen because they are philosophically predisposed to stopping the free flow of money, ideas, and everything else in the EU. So it cannot happen. The fact that this law is being proposed in the EU and this minister is saying he wants France to be the center of this new economy shows that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. The whole thing is discoordinated, and it depends on who gets to the legislature first that the outcome will be determined. And if France is lucky, they'll pass some laws that will make using Bitcoin legal and acceptable and trouble-free, although I doubt it. And if they're unlucky, the EU will pass this unhosted wallet law, and then the whole of the EU can be just thrown away because it's just not going to happen. But all of this stuff that's happening now is short-term perturbations, short-term annoyances. In the long term, and the real question is, how long is that long term? In the long term, they're not going to be able to police anybody. Bitcoin is going to be the global money for billions of people, and there's nothing they can do to stop that. And once that happens, all of their power to create money, to police people, will all just go away. Now, I'm not saying that people should not pay taxes. Bible says you have to pay taxes. So what they cannot do is create money behind people's backs and cheat people. Cheating is not right. And that's going to stop. Bitcoin is going to stop that. And so they're going to be forced to use money. The legislatures and politicians of the future, they're going to be forced to use money in the way that people want for police, fire protection, maybe schools, maybe not schools, street cleaning, keeping the streets clean, that kind of stuff. That's the things that they should be concentrating on, not on Bitcoin and other things like that. People trading messages over the internets. The whole structure of the Western world is going to change, and the rest of the world, by the way, but they'll probably be dragged along kicking and screaming. So, although maybe not, Nigeria is number 2 country on earth for Bitcoin. So it's possible that that country, which is a very great country, might get a government that's sensible, turn the switch on for Bitcoin, and then all of a sudden, some very, very good things can happen there. I don't know. All I know is that the inevitable is coming, and anybody who tries to stop it is a fool.
You know, I 100% agree. It's actually really fascinating because in developing countries, it's exactly what you said. People have the incentive because they're adopting Bitcoin out of necessity versus what you see in the West. People are adopting Bitcoin because they're speculating on it. They think they're going to get wealthy, right? So it's a whole different it's a whole different incentive, right? So I actually tweeted this out the other day. I'm more bullish on developing countries adopting Bitcoin than I am on developed countries adopting Bitcoin. Venezuelans are going to adopt Bitcoin because they want to put food on the table. So are Argentinians. So are people in Turkey. So are people in Nigeria, right? Versus, you know, Americans, they got that convenient PayPal, but none of them ever look under the hood, right? What if PayPal, and this isn't just me conspiracy theorying anymore, what if PayPal goes out the next day and says, hey, if you say a certain thing, we're going to fine you, which is what they tried to do before they got caught red-handed, right?
Exactly right. That's what just happened to Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok got her account, her PayPal account, it's not even her account, got the account that was associated with her terminated because they don't like what she's saying. And that is something that cannot happen in Bitcoin. And so we're taking it back into the near term. This whole cancel culture thing, when it comes to the financial rails, will cease to be a real thing. Anybody who wants to have cancel culture free money can have it if they're willing to download an ethical Bitcoin wallet and then load it up with Bitcoin. Nobody can stop them from receiving money if they use BTC Pay Server on their website or whatever whatever tools are out there. I think BTC Pay Server is one of the better ones. And nobody can stop you from receiving money. So this whole Bitcoin economy will change the way people behave because they'll know I can say whatever I want because the bank can't cut me off. There is no bank. I am the bank. I'm the bank now. And so they can do whatever they want. They can say whatever they want, and nobody can cut them off. It's going to mean a flowering of free speech. You might not like what they say. I might not even like it, but free speech is a good thing. And it will flower under a Bitcoin economy because the threat of being canceled will be eliminated forever.
Yep. And then people are just going to have to actually debate their ideas, right? Just very difficult.
Or just ignore them.
Yeah. So I'm very excited for this future, but I do agree. What doesn't scare me is not Bitcoin winning at the end. It's the transition. And right now we are in the middle of that transition. Anyways, Opti, let's get to the culture, bro. Let's do it.
The Daily Culture.
Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your Bitcoin stack with automated Bitcoin savings plans and instant purchases, serving clients of any size from $10 to $10 million. We love Swan because they incentivize self-custody and dollar cost averaging. What are you waiting for? Visit SwanBitcoin.com today. All right, guys, I also want to give a special shout out to Pacific Bitcoin. It's November 10th through the 11th, Los Angeles, California. Speaker list includes Michael Saylor, Lynn Alden, Corey Clipson, Jeff Booth, Nico, and Opti are going to be doing a live Simply Bitcoin from Pacific Bitcoin. You could take advantage of the promo code all caps simply to get a major discount on your Pacific Bitcoin tickets. Opti, what do you have for us today, brother?
Well, first and foremost, that was an amazing rip, pure signal for everyone listening. And I'm just going to reference some of your writings, Beauty on. I have them in the link or in the description for people if you want to get more, more expansive on these topics. But one of my favorite sayings, and I am pretty sure you're the creator of this for those seeing on the YouTube, it is Bitcoin is, and that is enough. And for you guys on the spaces, I'm not going to get into the article. I'd much rather just have Beauty on maybe elaborate on this for people that are new to this concept or this idea, because I fundamentally believe this. Bitcoin is, and that is enough. And more people need to understand this.
Well, now that Bitcoin exists, it's spreading all over the place. I coined this phrase because it was obvious to me that this missing part of the internet, payments that were secure and push payments, now that it existed, many things would be unlocked. It's like a Legend of Zelda. Many things would be unlocked because this thing exists. People might not understand how exactly it works right now, and it's going to take a long time for the correct business models to be discovered and then the businesses built on top of them. But those things are inevitable. The missing part was Bitcoin, and now it exists, and it cannot be undone. It cannot be revoked. It cannot be turned off. And once ordinary people understand the incentives, understand the advantages of using Bitcoin rather than a fiat money system, you're going to wake up one morning and find that Bitcoin is spreading exponentially throughout the whole world. It's going to take, the same thing happened with WhatsApp. WhatsApp is built on many decades of different software techniques and the perfect platform in the form of these Android and iPhones to create something that people who are interested in PGP, Phil Zimmerman and all this business, only dreamed about. Billions of people having their messages and voice calls protected by public key cryptography. How this was done, nobody could have imagined back in 1991 when PGP was first released. But today, it's obvious. WhatsApp is everywhere. Everybody has their stuff protected by public key cryptography, and this is a very important. There's a very important lesson in that also. Part of what the people who were exposed to these ideas originally imagined is that the user has to be in control of the generation of the secret and private key pairs. But it turns out that the benefits of public key cryptography can be obtained even if the wallet developer or the app developer takes care of that for you in the background. And the reality is that ordinary people who just want to get things done, are not going to be managing their private keys and public keys and disseminating them through a key server and all this business. They're just not going to do that. So the question is how to get the advantages of public key cryptography. And in Bitcoin, the analogy is controlling your own keys without exposing the users to all the burdens of key management. It will be done. It absolutely will be done. It can be done. It's been done before with GPG, PGP, and WhatsApp. And so that's the locus that everything needs to be attracted to, where a simple app on your phone, whether it's Wallet Satoshi, Samurai Wallet, Pine Wallet, Breeze, or Moon. Moon is a very good one, by the way. One of these wallets will become a billion user wallet. And if that happens, or when that happens, then everything is going to change. And let's go back to Moon Wallet just for a moment. That wallet is a very interesting tool. When you receive either Lightning on it or an on-chain transaction, it's added to the balance that's shown to you. You're shown one balance, and all of the mechanism underneath of how that balance got incremented is hidden away from you. The wallet takes care of all of the thinking for you, so you don't have to think. And if you want to reach 1 billion people, that's the kind of user experience that has to be put in front of people. Because I'm sorry to report, they're not going to read books. They're not going to read the manual. They're not going to manage their own keys. They don't care. They're very, very busy. So if we put something in front of them we being the people who run Bitcoin businesses like this one here, then the magic can happen, and it can happen in a proper way where people have control of their money. They're not being surveilled. They're not being asked to show their passport to be able to buy an ice cream with Bitcoin. And the good things can happen. It's very important to think about these things and to also have an understanding of the history of these tools and how people have struggled to get them into the hands of ordinary people. Once this happens, and this is going to happen in Bitcoin, I guarantee you that, then the world is going to change. And all of the side effects that have been predicted by me and other people are going to come to pass. And we're going to be living in a very, very different world to the one that we're living in now. It's going to be a better world. It's going to be a more polite world. Even though people will be free to say whatever they want, it will be more polite. It will be, and this is actually, that's not a hard thing to predict, because back in the 1800s and co, they didn't have all these speech policing that they have today, and there was a more polite world. So things are going to be normalized, and they're going to be more advanced, and everybody's going to benefit. I think that's a very easy prediction to make. The only question is, what country is going to be the center of Bitcoin? What country is going to be, what jurisdiction is going to be the center of this transformation? Now, I would prefer it if it was the United States of America, because I'm biased. But if they decide not to take that crown and put it on their collective heads, then some other country is going to do it. And it's going to be, it could be a very strange country. For many generations, Caribbean countries were the places where people incorporated to have these shell corporations and stuff, and they made a lot of money out of it. So there's no reason why this couldn't happen again with some other jurisdiction, or it might even happen in China and places like that. And I don't think any Americans really want that. They want it to happen inside America, and there's no reason why it should not. What they need to do is to, the legislators need to obey the oaths they swore, not embrace crony capitalism and listen to these crony capitalists saying that Bitcoin's bad for the environment, all that kind of other guff. And then the people who are running these companies will just make it happen. Silicon Valley is the home of the social media and everything else. There's no reason why it can't be the home of Bitcoin too, but it's not going to happen, because Bitcoin, when it behaves like money, has a whole bunch of different incentives aligned with it. And when people have a choice between being surveilled and not being surveilled, they're going to go for not being surveilled, especially if it's 3 millimeters away on their phone. So it's very important that the business environment is properly ordered, meaning not regulated, so that people are free to innovate, make these new businesses succeed, fail, serve people, and create the economy that is absolutely inevitable. So that's really, it's as simple as that. And anybody, once again, anybody who's old should know this. They should know this. They should not be misbehaving.
Absolutely love it. And Beauty On, you touched on it a few times, and we're very big on pushing the idea of self-custody being the revolution in Bitcoin. And you've added something to our lexicon and the way that we push self-custody, and it's naming the names of the ethical Bitcoin wallets and having to direct people to the right tools. So could maybe you continue to elaborate on that signal for the people out there so we can get those calls of actions?
Well, on Twitter, we see people talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to do this, Bitcoin's going to do that. And of course, they're right. But it can't happen unless people are using Bitcoin. It can't happen unless people are able to get Bitcoin in a trivially easy way. And so if you really want Bitcoin to succeed and the right tools to be the means by which it's succeeding, you have to name those tools. You have to name them. You have to send people to go and get these tools and download them onto their phones. So if you have a Twitter account with, I don't know, 5 million followers, and you never mention the name of a single Bitcoin wallet, that's weird. In my opinion, that's very weird. So I've tried to do a couple of forced memes, which of course never work, to make people list Bitcoin wallets, the ethical Bitcoin wallets, and then encourage people, whenever they talk about Bitcoin, to at least in a thread mention a wallet that they want other people to use, so that there are millions more new installs of all of these wallets. so that people have a means to use Bitcoin, and it's not just something people talk about. It's useful up to a point to talk about all the problems that are coming and how the CDBCs and blah, 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 blah. You can do it till the cows come home. But if you never mention Wallet of Satoshi, Samurai Wallet, or Moon Wallet, or any of these Bitcoin wallets that are out there that can actually be the total solution to this, who are you helping? You're not helping anybody. So I wonder sometimes if these people even use Bitcoin themselves. I don't know. But to me, if you're talking about any kind of tool as a means to solving a problem, and you will not show people where that tool is, you've got a problem. You've got a problem, and you need to stop it, and you need to think about helping your followers. And to me, it's very, very simple. The Bitcoin can't do anything just because you talk about it. People have to use Bitcoin. And of course, use Bitcoin means any use that you put it to. If you want to save your money in Bitcoin to some future date, that's using Bitcoin. If you want to go to the store and spend with it, that's using Bitcoin. If you want to use it for sending money from across the world, or putting $1 million in your brain to go across the border, all of that is using Bitcoin. There's no one way to use Bitcoin. But if people don't have the tools, don't have the means, that nobody can use it. Bitcoin isn't a club. It's not a social club. It's not a community. It's a tool. And if people are not using that tool, that's not good. So our mission here at Azteco is to get as many people using Bitcoin as possible, making it trivially easy for people to get Bitcoin. And by stripping away all the complexity, we've managed to do that in a very, very big way. And the best Bitcoin wallets are going to be the ones that understand what a consumer is on the WhatsApp level, meaning that it has to be as simple as WhatsApp, perhaps even simpler, so that anybody can just download it, use it, and then that's it. Now, those wallets, and these people are not bad people, they're just not at an advanced stage of development. These people who release tools that force you to record the mnemonic before you can even receive any Bitcoin, that's anti-consumer. So, you wonder, how many people do you want to be using your tool? Do you want 100 million people to be using your tool, or do you only want a few thousand to be using it? These are the immediate questions that come to mind. They're uncomfortable questions, but somebody's got to ask them. Somebody's got to say, why aren't you talking about Bitcoin wallets? Why aren't you pointing people to Bitcoin wallets? You say you're a Bitcoin enthusiast. You say you're for Bitcoin. You say you're for the aims of Bitcoin, but won't point anybody to the tools that will make it happen. This is doublethink. This is a misalignment of behavior and desired outcome. You've got to be the change that you want to become. You'll become the change you want to be, or whatever it is. And if you're not promoting Bitcoin wallets, I put it to you, you're not a real Bitcoiner at all. Mm-hmm. You're just a LARPer. You're a LARPer. You're playing at Bitcoin. You think it's about Twitter. You think it's about a community. It's not. And nobody is helped by doing this. We all know about this poor guy in Iran just been arrested just because he's using Bitcoin. This is very serious. This is very, very serious. And in the Bitcoin future, where everybody's using Bitcoin, things like that will happen less often, a lot less often, maybe even never. So do you want to get to that world quickly, or do you want to wait and let more and more people suffer because you can't be bothered to recommend one Bitcoin wallet? To me, it's very perplexing, but that's just me.
Wow. I think you said it perfectly. And this is something that we advocate for on the show, right? It's self-custody is the revolution. That is the change. If you look at it on a very fundamental level, human beings have always outsourced the responsibility of their wealth, which has given a few a tremendous amount of power over everybody else. How do you effectuate change? You get millions upon millions upon millions of individuals holding their own wealth, and they do that with proper key management. And I think, Beauty on, you really hit the nail on the head. It falls to developers in some way that they have to hide the complexity of that key storage, of that wallet behind a very nice user interface, but still provide the same benefits of self-custody, right? And I think that is really key. And I fundamentally agree. I think someone who is, an older person, right? Perhaps they just don't have an interest in learning how to properly store and manage keys.
That's exactly right. And why should they have an interest in it? They shouldn't. And a lot of these companies who are cash strapped, of course, they can't afford to bring in a focus group and to test what their interfaces work like in front of real people, which is, of course, what Apple does and all these other companies. They have the money to do that. They put their applications and tools in front of real people and see how they work. So there's a lot of people making assumptions about what a user wants, what a typical user is, and that is a measure of their ambition. If you see people putting all the bells and whistles in their wallet right in front of the user, or even before a user can even receive a transaction, you can tell these people are not consumer oriented. And of course, let's be absolutely fully clear, tools that do that are useful for the people who need them, and they should be developed and they should be released, and you should be able to use them if you want to use them. I'm talking about a very narrow gamut of Bitcoin user, which, even though it's narrow, has a billion people in that narrow corridor. And in order to reach those people, you're not going to be able to do it with the hardcore technical Bitcoin aspects. You're not going to be able to do it. At best, at most, you need to show them a balance and 2 buttons, send and receive, and that's it. And anything more than that is too much. I've spent many years. We used to have a store in central London, Golston Street, where we were testing the Azteco system. And the people who were coming in were just ordinary people, and they have literally no idea how anything works. It's very, very difficult, first of all, to describe to them what Bitcoin is, why it's good for them, and then to get them to download a wallet and then, onboard them with a voucher. We were talking about something super, super, super incomprehensible to most people. That's why anything that's technical, anything that's scary must be completely eviscerated, must be completely erased from the process. Otherwise, you're not going to get them to use it. It's as simple as that. And then once that happens, when billions of people are using Bitcoin, you'll see in newspapers, magazines, there'll be QR codes everywhere. You'll get tired of seeing QR codes everywhere, because the Bitcoin transformation will have happened, but we'll be better off for it. And so if that's the price of being bored of seeing QR codes is the price of I'll pay that price. I'll pay that price.
Oh man, amazing. You've absolutely blown my mind today. Ati, what do you think? I think we should continue with the culture. This is really good conversation.
I got one more. I have a whole bunch over here, but we got this article right here.
Let me do the ad real quick for Represent, since we're not for Cypher Safe, since we're not doing the meme review. Anyways, guys, don't store your seed on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage, dog attacks. Don't lose your generational wealth because you didn't store your Bitcoin seed on steel. And there's no better place to do it than the Cypher Wheel or the Cypher Grid by Cypher Safe. Check out the link down below. You definitely don't want to lose your Bitcoin seed because you lost it in a fire or water. That would suck. Anyways, Opti, take it away.
Super high signal show today. And also I had a few more articles that I love from BeautyOn in the show notes, guys. So you guys can definitely read them for yourself. But here's one that I think people should read. And we say this all the time, that the Bitcoin price doesn't matter. There's only one way of this game going on, and it's pure adoption of Bitcoin. So maybe BeautyOn, you can jump in and elaborate more, and then we can roll this one out.
Well, the price of Bitcoin doesn't matter at all, because if you're going to use Bitcoin for sending money from A to B, if you do it quickly enough, the price of Bitcoin fluctuating doesn't have any effect on it. So in that use case, if you have a business that's properly designed, the Bitcoin price is irrelevant because you're using it as a money transport. And that was the the thrust of that article, that it is possible to make a business model that eliminates the price fluctuation as a factor in anybody's use of Bitcoin. So if anybody can just, well, if I can imagine a use case like that, that means there must be a lot other ones that I haven't imagined. And it just means that people have to spend the time to develop them. So we can't throw out Bitcoin and say that it's useless, it's no good, like that very silly Jemima woman said on the stage of the day, because it's volatile now. And if you've seen a graph of the Bitcoin volatility over time, it's going down like this at like 45 degrees. So eventually the volatility is going to get to essentially zero. And so in order to get there, you've got to build these businesses right now. You've got to start building them, thinking about them, testing them, putting them in front of the public. And as Bitcoin spreads and becomes the money, then 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. And a fraction of Bitcoin equals a sneaker today, tomorrow, and 6 months from now, and even years from now. That means you can save your stored wealth in Bitcoin with the sure knowledge that when in the future you want to spend it, it's going to be able to buy the same amount that you stored at the beginning. And there are a couple of nice charts out there in the world that show that the price of a cow, when priced in gold, has been the same for thousands of years. So this is going to happen in Bitcoin, where the price of goods over many, many, many decades is unchanging. And that's what happens when you have a sound money in place in the market. And of course, Bitcoin is better than gold because it's mathematical and not chemical. So that's the thrust behind that article. Don't keep mithering on about the price. The price is irrelevant. That Bitcoin actually is what's important, that you can go and download it yourself, be your own bank, quote unquote, send and receive money without anybody's permission instantaneously. That's what matters. And I don't know about anybody else, but if you've been signing up for bank accounts in the last 5 years, it is the most onerous, invasive, horrible, and disgusting process imaginable. With Bitcoin, all that goes away. All you have to do is download one of the ethical Bitcoin apps or download Bitcoin Core if you're that hardcore, and instantaneously you can send money from your laptop or your desktop to anybody anywhere in the world in any amount. And the amount of Bitcoin you have is up to you and how you perform and the services you give to others in the free market. Who could possibly be against that? It's all good all the time. So it's very important not to be distracted by the naysayers, the computer illiterates, the frightened rabbits, the people who have a BA history degree and who work for the Financial Times, who don't know anything about anything about Bitcoin. No, honestly, you look these people up. They all have the wrong degrees. And you notice that they never get articles written by anybody who's actually in Bitcoin, who actually knows what they're talking about, to write in the Financial Times, because they know you let these people out into the Financial Times writing something that makes irrefutable sense, it's going to damage the reputation of the Financial Times, because they won't be able to justify all the bad things they've been writing for ages. And also, since I started, this idea that there is 2 sides to every story, that journalistic objectivity applies to math, is insane. There is no objectivity in math. 1 + 1 = 2. It always equals 2. It never equals anything else. And Bitcoin is just math. It's not money. It's math on a database. And so there's no 2 sides to it. There's no objectivity that you can apply to it, saying it's not math, it is math. It is exactly what it is all the time. It never changes. And so if you try and bring this journalistic objectivity and nuance and perspective doctrine of this 2022, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with math, because math isn't like that. And that's the problem when you have these liberal arts journalists trying to write about mathematics. They're not qualified to understand mathematics. They don't understand the fundamental ideas in mathematics, that it's not it's not about speculation. It's not a science. Actually, it's not even a science because it's not about theory. Math is about facts. And Bitcoin, because it's based only on math, is about facts. And this is what's been missing in the money creation systems of the world since since the world went off of the gold standard, that money isn't based on facts anymore. But now, because of Bitcoin, money is based on facts. It's based on facts even more so than the old money that used to be based on gold, because the supply is literally fixed. There's not going to be, you can't go out and discover new gold mines and stuff like that. It's absolutely fixed. It's like a measure on a ruler. And I happen to have a ruler right here. And as you can see here, there are inches on here. These inches on this ruler don't change over time. They don't get longer, they don't get longer. An inch is an inch, and a centimeter is a centimeter. And that's what's been brought to Bitcoin, is an absolutely fundamental, unchangeable measure of value that you can use this database for. And this is the fundamental change that the Gutenberg press that's being brought to economics. It's never existed before. And so even if you don't like it, man doesn't go forward by being frightened. If this really is a new thing that's never been seen before, that could cause beneficial effects for the entire world, including the effect of eliminating waste of the consumer society, this is something that needs to be treated very, very, very carefully. It's not something to be frightened of. It's like saying you shouldn't send probes to Mars because the Martians might get angry and they might come and invade us. It's just not the way it works. So all these people who are frightened of Bitcoin, they need to be quiet. They need to be quiet. They need to stop interfering with the activities of free people who are using this new ruler to measure things that they want to measure. And that's all they're doing. And so if you don't like it, well, you're free not to like it. It's not, some people don't like strawberries. Nobody's going to force you to eat them. And nobody's going to force you to use Bitcoin either. You can't come and tell us not to use Bitcoin. That's what you need to understand. We're not going to stop using Bitcoin because you're frightened of it. It's not going to happen. If we fail, if the fundamental premise and ideas behind Bitcoin are wrong and we fail, well, we're the ones who failed and not you. And the fiat system will carry on, and good luck to you. And if we're right, then we have changed the world for the better. And guess what? You get to come along for free.
Yeah,
amazing.
Super, super fascinating. And like that, it's so true, because their usual way of coercing people through accumulating enough political willpower to, capture the government, the monopoly on violence, to force the other side what to do, right? In a Bitcoin world, that doesn't work, right? It's individuals making their own decision, regardless of what the people in power have to say on how they want to save their wealth. And because it's Bitcoin, they can't censor it, they can't steal it, and they can't debase it. And I think that's the beauty of this. Guys, the show ran a little bit long.
Wait, Nico, let's get to the software, the site by Bitcoiners, so that we can plug Azteco.
All right, let's do it.
Websites.
All right, guys, I'm not going to do this justice. We'll give it to Beautyon, but this is one of my favorite sites out here to get. As Beautyon always says, ethical Bitcoin. I use this site regularly, and I think it's one of the best. So maybe Beautyon, you could give the people the rundown that aren't familiar with Azteco, and we'll roll this one out today.
Well, Azteco is the project I'm working on now for about 8 years, and it's the way to get Bitcoin when you think about Bitcoin correctly. So you go into an Azteco outlet, of which there are 200,000 in South Africa and 200,000 in Brazil, believe it or not. Everywhere in Brazil where you can buy a lottery ticket, you can buy an Azteco voucher. You pay some money, and then you get a 16-digit voucher code or an LNURL. And then when you get that LNURL, you scan it with one of your LNURL-enabled wallets, and then in 3 seconds, you get the Bitcoin. That's it. There's no signing up. There's no onerous, invasive nonsense. It's just like topping up your mobile phone. Most of the people on Earth don't have phone accounts to make phone calls. They pay as you go. And so we superimpose that model onto Bitcoin. And so we can reach the same demographic of people who top up their mobile phones on an ad hoc basis. And there are a lot of people who do that. And so we're finding this is a very popular service. We have some mega announcements that are coming that I can't talk about right now. But this is going to be the universal way people buy Bitcoin for billions of people. And that's not a boast. So if you go onto the website, you can see that we have a pay in person option. And we also have a map showing where all of the outlets are. Canada should be on next week, we hope. And that's it. This is a service that's true to the nature of Bitcoin. We don't abuse our users, and we work very hard on it, and we're going to do it.
It's
amazing.
It's awesome.
And for those listening, that's Azteco, azte.co, for you guys that are unaware.
That's exactly right. And I just saw there they have Nedbank, which is a bank in South Africa. There are 3 million people in South Africa who have Nedbank Time Bank accounts on their mobile phones, and they can buy Azteco vouchers from their Nedbank or Time Bank right inside their mobile phone. So we're on a push for education so that people can understand why Bitcoin is good for them, why they should use it. And as this knowledge begins to spread, they're going to go to the easiest place to get it. And Azteco is the easiest place to get Bitcoin right now.
Absolutely. Guys, this was one of my favorite shows. Before we wrap up, I want to give special shout out to the people that pay the bills and make this show happen. RepresentLTD.com. Opti, show off the shirt, show off the back. That's one of my favorite. It's the guy with the AK. He makes Bitcoin merch. He's going to make Simply Bitcoin merch. You could take advantage of the promo code down below the video description or the podcast description to get a 10% off discount. RepresentLTD.com. I also want to give a very special shout out to our awesome guests, the one, the only, the legendary Beauty On. Beauty On, I really enjoyed this, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Where could people find you on social media? And is there anything that you're working on as of late that you wanna tell the people about?
Well, they can find me on Twitter, which is at @beautyon_, which is where I'm not on Facebook or any of those other things. And and what am I working on? I'm working on changing the world. We're going to do it.
Aren't we all playing our part to try to push this beautiful, peaceful revolution forward? It's been an honor, Beauty On. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully we can do it in a couple months once again. It's my pleasure. Anytime, Nico. Thank you. Guys, that was another episode of Simply Bitcoin. You could find us on audio only. Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Fountain for our audio listeners. You're listening to Simply Bitcoin Live. We stream this on YouTube, Rumble, Bitcoin TV, also on Twitter Spaces, and just regular live stream on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you really enjoyed the show, the number one thing you could do to push this peaceful revolution forward is share this video. Get the orange pill message out there. We love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow for another episode of Simply Bitcoin.
Which one's the best crypto asset? Well, Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Okay. What's the second best? There is no second best.